Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video is going to be an interesting one. Now, this was a question posed to us by one of our Patreons, and it was how to make my opponents enjoy playing against my armies more. Now, this person who sent this in plays a couple of, I guess, the stronger armies in the game at the moment, and their opponents maybe don't play quite as strong armies. Now, this disparity can not always be a bad thing, but maybe sometimes player skill level is certainly a factor in this, and you know, there are players who will want to get better and players who just want to run models forward and stuff like that, and there's varying levels of people who get time to invest to play the game in certain ways and at a certain level. So I understand this person's conundrum of they want their opponents to enjoy the game they're playing against them in the best possible way, and so they're not enjoying their games because maybe they're running away with victories, they don't feel challenged, they can see their opponents maybe not enjoying it or stuff like that. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of ways when I do this playing against people who bring either weaker armies onto the channel or meeting up with new people into the game for the first time, on things I like to do playing against these people that bring underpowered armies when I maybe have stronger. I generally don't run an awful lot of the strongness. Stormcast at the moment is probably my strongest army, but I normally run, other than that, Cities of Sigmar would be, you know, the army a lot of people know I run, and that is a variety of mid-tier strength all the way through, from bottom mid-tier to very high mid-tier, to some even some even top-tier armies as well. But that beside the point, I want to talk about a couple of things I like to do just to give you some ideas and thoughts on how you can run your list when you're trying to pick up new players, when you're playing against friends who maybe aren't quite as competitive as you, don't have as much time to invest into the game and looking at the game and, you know, understanding all the nuance of the game, without having to drop much, or if anything at all, from your armies. So, I've got 3 things that we can chat about. Let's get cracking on into this list and let's have a talk. And so, number 1 is probably, I guess, the least useful answer, because it is play a weaker army. Now, this of course can mean that you just choose to pick up something like Gloomspite Gitz or Beasts of Chaos to play your friends with, and indeed I've done that in the past when friends are new learning the game or they're bringing a weaker army to the channel. I will pick out an army I have, like my Beasts or my Gloomspite Gitz, to play them in a game with, rather than picking something like my Stormcast Eternals to play, you know, another low tier army. However, this doesn't necessarily need to be the case. You can certainly play a weaker army without changing your actual faction of choice. For example, you could be playing Lumineth Realm Lords, and the idea would be maybe go play the Alarith Temple rather than playing a Warden and Sentinel build, or indeed the Wind Spirit build. You could play another build within the same army, so you're still playing your favourite army, but maybe not taking the, I guess, tournament build of the army. In case, this will definitely make your games a lot closer, and it'll definitely, I guess, hopefully inspire your opponents to do some more, and you can teach them and instruct them as well. Explaining and mentoring stuff for opponents as well is really important. So this can be either when you're playing against an opponent, or watching 2 people play and explaining, I guess, the choices and decisions you're making and the choices and decisions you would make in there. If you are the better player, the more experienced player, it's important that you pass on that knowledge to other players, because being able to help these other players become better players in themselves when they then play you and don't require your advice anymore, you yourself are going to become better because you've created better players around you to challenge you and to make you in turn better yourself. Just explaining and mentoring, I think, is something that is really not done enough in the hobby. While we have so many great resource channels that are definitely into much more competitive play than my own channel, check out channels like AOS Coach, for example, where he does really good faction deep dives with a bunch of really good generals from across the world on multiple different factions. Explaining and mentoring is just incredibly important. Passing on that knowledge to the next generation of gamers and the new gamers coming into the system so they in turn get better and making you better is a massive part of just increasing the overall level of the game. And moving on, I guess, to army construction ideas for yourself. How about trying multiple small unit armies instead of massive sort of Death Stars or big killer units? You can look at this through Lumineth is a good example of running a big block of 30 Sentinels. They all can benefit from Lambent Light, which means that you're going to get more mortals out of that unit than you otherwise would everywhere. But maybe you want to run 3 units of Sentinels, and this is going to increase your army and how you have to run MSU and stuff like that. And your buff units, while, putting on buffs is still going to allow a 10-man unit of Sentinels to do some decent damage with Lambent Light. It's not going to have them become oppressive across the battlefield to an opponent that is new to the game, or indeed just wanting that more casual matchup of a game. So you can do these things, changing how you work your army with these multiple small units. Not necessarily changing any models, but instead just changing the composition of your army to allow for no oppressive sort of units to hit the table. And of course, you measure this with your opponent. If your opponent decides to bring those units, you of course bring your own large units, and maybe you reduce, the number of reinforcement points that you get throughout the armies. Maybe you each only get 2 at a 2,000 point game and stuff like that. This can really help sort of balance out a game a little bit more. And lastly, my last thought is to widen your army composition. Play with lots of different units. Now, I did this in my last Stormcast Eternal list, and I still went 3-0 with it. I played with all the different paladins where perhaps I didn't need to take certain units of those paladins. I can definitely play with with like multiple of different units. But I felt taking the multiple units really made my army more fun for me to play personally, and also made it so it wasn't just a spamming of the same thing over and over again. You can still play with a good army, something like Stormcast Eternals, and take a wider variety of units rather than going down the one route of playing only these one particular units in mass sort of numbers, and this applies to a ton of different armies. Spread out your wings. You'll find that there are so many good units in many of those top tier books that you don't require the need to spam certain units and models. They might be the most efficient, but you've definitely got other units. Many units in those top tier books, other armies, the ones that you consider are bad in those books, are good in comparison with other armies. So this is definitely a way you can definitely spread your wings, play with your same army that you really enjoy, just play with lots of different units, and it brings down your opponent's ability. Add this with MSU and you've really got a good way to tone down your army for newer opponents and for people who aren't playing at such a competitive level. But that is 4 points I like to make about this sort of subject. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on how they sort of tone down their armies for newer players, for clubmates who maybe don't play as competitively or don't get the time to understand the game in such a way. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below and let us know what you enjoyed about the video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn those bell notifications on so you don't miss a beat when we upload new stuff to the channel. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by helping support the channel on Patreon or YouTube members. This allows us to continue to make new content for the channel, exploring other game systems outside of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, like we have started to with things like Elder Scrolls: A Call to Arms and Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings and Warhammer 40,000. And it helps us just continue to make more Age of Sigmar content as well. Thank you to, though, everyone who has helped support, and we'd like to give them all a shout out to our patrons. First of all, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, and Samuel. And to our YouTube members as well, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny Locklorick, The Johnny 84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Sean Scott, and Diplomat. And a special thank you, of course, to, first of all, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel you see here, and to Xmorphic, who does all the awesome background work on our Discord server, keeping that nice and running properly for us all. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.